People often think of money as a constant source of stress, ambition, or even fear. Some chase it relentlessly, others resent it, and many feel trapped by it. But few pause to ask a deeper, almost paradoxical question. What if gratitude, not calculation, not control, not worry, could change everything about the way we live with money? Imagine for a moment that the money in your life is not just a number in a bank account or a stack of bills in your hand. Imagine it as a mirror, one that reflects the energy you carry inside yourself. If that mirror reflects fear, you see scarcity everywhere. If it reflects resentment, money slips away as though it refuses to stay. But if the mirror reflects gratitude, something remarkable happens. Money begins to behave differently. It feels less like a weight and more like a current. It becomes not just a possession, but a flow. This audiobook is about that flow, about how gratitude, the simple yet profound act of saying thank you to life, transforms your relationship with finances. It may sound illogical at first. Gratitude seems like something soft, spiritual, unconnected to the hard facts of numbers and bills. Yet Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, taught that thought is energy, and energy precedes matter. In other words, what we think and feel sets the stage for what we experience. And if gratitude can heal the body and mend relationships, could it not also open the doors of financial well-being? Pause with me here. Think about your own life. How often do you look at what you don't have, how much more you need, how far behind you feel, rather than what you already hold? How often do you wake up already calculating the shortfall? That posture, repeated day after day, builds an invisible cage, the scarcity mindset. And that cage does not only confine your emotions, it confines your finances. People sense it. Opportunities pass by. Even decisions you make under the shadow of scarcity tend to shrink rather than expand your possibilities. Now, what happens if you tilt the lens? Imagine waking up and, before looking at the numbers, you whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for the food on the table. Thank you for the income, no matter how small. Thank you for the chance to work, to trade, to save, to share." It seems simple, but it's not trivial. That act of gratitude shifts the energy. It interrupts the cycle of fear. It creates a space where your mind can see clearly, your heart can stay calm, and your eyes can notice doors that were always there, but previously hidden behind clouds of worry. Let's make it real. Think of a person holding a cup. If the person keeps looking at how empty the cup still is, they carry bitterness. They guard what little is inside, and they forget to drink. But if they give thanks for what fills even a quarter of the cup, they drink with joy. And life seems to pour in more. Gratitude doesn't magically change the cup's size, but it changes how you hold it. And strangely enough, that very shift makes it easier for more to arrive. You might be listening to this while commuting, or perhaps late at night after a long day. Wherever you are, I'd like you to take a brief moment. Comment below this video with where you are listening from and what time it is right now. This practice, even here, is an act of gratitude, acknowledging that we are connected in this shared moment across cities and continents. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel, Audiobook Sanctuary, and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss the stories and teachings that can continue to reshape not just how you think, but how you live. Now let's return to our story. Gratitude in finances isn't about ignoring reality. It's not pretending that debts vanish or that bills don't exist. Gratitude is about shifting the foundation from which you face them. Picture two individuals. One sees only lack. They panic at every expense, cut corners without vision, and approach others with an air of desperation. The other acknowledges their challenges but begins with thanks, with a steady recognition of what is working. The second person is calmer, clearer, and more attractive to partners, employers, or investors. They radiate trust. And trust, more than numbers on paper, is often the hidden currency of financial growth. Edgar Cayce's readings often pointed toward the spiritual law that what you hold in consciousness multiplies. Dwell on fear, and you find more reasons to fear. Dwell on gratitude, and you find more to be grateful for. Even in financial matters, this law applies. The one who says, "I never have enough," closes the door before opportunity even knocks. The one who whispers, "Thank you for what I have," leaves the door ajar, and life, ever responsive, slips new chances through. Of course, gratitude is not a substitute for action. It does not replace wise planning or responsible stewardship, but it fuels those very practices with energy that sustains rather than drains you. Think of gratitude as sunlight. The soil may still need watering and tending, but without sunlight, growth stalls. Gratitude shines on your financial garden, and in that light, even small seeds of effort can sprout into larger harvests. So as we begin this journey together, hold this thought close. Money responds not only to strategy, but to spirit. Your numbers may tell one story, but your energy tells another, and often it is the energy that determines the outcome. Gratitude is not weakness, it is power. The paradox is real. By saying thank you for what is already in your hands, you prepare your hands to receive more. That is the path we will walk step by step. And in the next part of our journey, we will look closely at the two great mindsets that shape financial destiny: the mindset of scarcity and the mindset of abundance. One closes doors, the other opens them wide. There are two inner postures that shape nearly every financial outcome in life: the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. Though invisible, they act like filters through which we perceive the world. They are not just ideas. They are lenses that color every choice, every risk we take, every opportunity we see or fail to see. The scarcity mindset whispers, "There is never enough." It tells you that resources are limited, that opportunities are rare, that others' gain must mean your loss. People living in this frame often move through life clenched, guarded, and fearful. Every dollar spent feels like a wound, every bill like an enemy. Their conversations carry tones of complaint. Their energy signals desperation. And as Edgar Cayce often observed, what we project outward tends to return to us. Scarcity attracts more scarcity, not because the world runs out of resources, but because our vision shrinks until we no longer recognize possibilities even when they're in front of us. By contrast, the abundance mindset begins with a simple declaration: there is enough and more will come. This is not naive optimism, it is trust that life holds a rhythm of giving and receiving. When you carry this perspective, you notice connections, you see patterns, you dare to collaborate rather than compete. Abundance says if someone else succeeds, that success can open a door for me too. If I spend wisely, the money will return in another form. If I share, I multiply trust, and trust multiplies opportunities. Pause for a moment and think about the last financial decision you made. Whether large or small, did you decide from fear or from faith? Did you hesitate because you imagined only loss, or did you act because you believed in growth? So much of financial struggle is not just about income or expense, but about the invisible current beneath them. Scarcity locks the current. Abundance lets it move. Cayce's insights often emphasize that we live in a universe of law, not chaos. The law of cause and effect applies not only to physical acts, but to inner states of mind. A person who lives in scarcity creates causes, hesitation, mistrust, anxiety, that ripple outward and bring effects consistent with them. They turn away partners with their nervousness. They miss windows of timing because they are too consumed with fear to act. Meanwhile, someone grounded in gratitude and abundance creates causes of openness, trust, and steady courage. The effects follow naturally. Doors open, collaborations emerge, even financial challenges find resolution more smoothly. Let us bring this down to the level of daily life. Picture two people in the same neighborhood, both earning the same modest income. The first constantly says, "I can't make ends meet." They dwell on the shortfall, they refuse invitations to share meals, they never risk a new venture because they fear losing what little they have. The second, while aware of limitations, begins each day by acknowledging the roof over their head, the food that is still on the table, the chance to work another day. They share a little of what they have, not recklessly, but with sincerity. Soon, neighbors trust them. Someone recommends them for a better job. Someone else offers a small partnership. Slowly, their financial situation changes. Not because magic dropped money from the sky, but because their energy attracted possibilities that fear would have blocked. Scarcity, then, is not simply about numbers. Two people can look at the same bank balance and feel entirely different things. One feels shame, the other feels gratitude. One feels trapped, the other feels inspired to grow. Numbers are neutral. It is the lens through which we view them that gives them power over us. When you live in scarcity, gratitude seems impossible. The mind argues, "How can I be grateful when I don't have enough?" But this is where the paradox turns. Gratitude is not a result of abundance. It is the seed of it. You do not wait for plenty before you give thanks. You give thanks. And through that act, you create the mental and emotional soil in which abundance can grow. This shift is not easy. Fear is persuasive. It convinces you that guarding, hoarding, and withholding will protect you. But fear is a poor accountant. It costs you clarity, peace, and courage. Gratitude, on the other hand, is a wise steward. It calms your nerves, sharpens your sight, and keeps your energy open. Think of money as water. The scarcity mindset builds dams, holding every drop back. But soon the water grows stagnant. The abundance mindset builds channels, allowing water to flow, and as it flows, fresh streams continue to come. The same truth applies in our financial lives. What we allow to move multiplies. What we clutch too tightly often slips away. Perhaps you are remembering times when you lived in each mindset. Perhaps you recall the stress of scarcity, those nights staring at the ceiling, rehearsing every unpaid bill, every looming expense. Or perhaps you recall moments of abundance, times when, though the numbers were not extraordinary, you felt rich because you noticed what you had, and strangely, more seemed to arrive. These memories are not random. They are witnesses to the law at work. The question for you now is simple. Which lens will you choose? Scarcity will always tempt you, but gratitude is always available too. With practice, the grateful heart becomes your default, and from that soil, abundance grows naturally. As we step forward in this journey, we will look deeper into the energy of appreciation itself, not only as an attitude, but as a magnet. Gratitude is not passive. It carries power. It shapes how others perceive you and how opportunities find you. It is the silent language that prosperity listens for. There is something mysterious about gratitude, something that goes beyond words and touches the hidden currents of life. Gratitude is not just politeness, not just saying thank you to check off a moral box. It is an energy. It is a vibration that radiates from the heart, and like a tuning fork, it attracts experiences that match its resonance. Edgar Cayce often said that mind is the builder, but he also emphasized that the heart's condition directs what the mind builds. Gratitude is one of the purest conditions of the heart, and when it flows through your thoughts, it becomes a silent magnet for prosperity. Think of two people walking into the same room of strangers. The first carries anxiety and complaint. Their face is tight, their body tense, their tone restless. Without even speaking, people sense it and keep their distance. The second carries gratitude. They may not even say the word thank you, but their eyes shine. Their presence feels calm. Their energy communicates appreciation for being alive. Which person would you want to engage, to collaborate with, to trust with an opportunity? Gratitude radiates invisibly, and others respond without always knowing why. Money, in its deeper nature, is trust made visible. Every transaction is built on belief that this paper note, this number on a screen, holds value. And who do we extend trust to? Those who radiate steadiness, openness, and goodwill. Gratitude cultivates those very qualities. When people sense your grateful energy, they feel safer to share ideas, to offer chances, even to invest in you. In this way, gratitude is not sentimental, it is practical. It creates the conditions in which prosperity feels at home. Let's use an image. Imagine you are a gardener. Seeds fall in many places, but they only sprout in soil that welcomes them. Scarcity hardens the soil. Fear makes it rocky. But gratitude softens the ground. It warms the earth so that when opportunities like seeds fall your way, they take root. Without gratitude, opportunities dry up, even if they land right at your feet. With gratitude, the smallest seed can grow into a tree of provision. Many people chase prosperity as though it is a wild animal to be trapped. They run, they grasp, they exhaust themselves. But prosperity does not respond well to chasing. It responds to invitation. Gratitude is that invitation. It says to life, I see the gifts already here, and I am ready for more. It opens your hands instead of closing them. And open hands can receive. Perhaps you have noticed this in your own life. When you dwell on complaints, your energy feels heavy, and even when something good happens, you hardly notice it. But when you practice gratitude, even for small things, you begin to see abundance everywhere. A discount at the store feels like a blessing. A kind word feels like wealth. This awareness does not replace financial growth, but it primes you to see opportunities where others see nothing. Over time, those small recognitions add up to a very real difference in your financial story. There are countless examples. Think of a worker who is overlooked in their company. They resent the lack of recognition, and their resentment grows. Their energy becomes negative, and soon their managers notice, but not in the way they had hoped. They are passed over again. Another worker in the same role begins each day by being grateful for the chance to learn, to contribute, to earn, even if modestly. Their spirit radiates positivity. When a promotion appears, that energy makes them memorable, trustworthy, appealing. Gratitude, once again, acted as a magnet for prosperity. Edgar Cayce taught that energy follows attention. When you place your attention on lack, energy drains. When you place your attention on gratitude, energy gathers. This gathering becomes momentum, and momentum attracts circumstances that match. The law is simple, but its effects are profound. So how does one cultivate this magnetic energy of appreciation? Start small. At the end of each day, whisper thanks for 3 things related to money. It might be as simple as, I am grateful I could buy food today, or I am grateful my salary arrived, or even, I am grateful for the wisdom to manage my bills. These small acknowledgments ripple outward. They shift your energy from fear to appreciation, from tightness to openness. Over time, the shift becomes noticeable, not just to you, but to those around you. Picture gratitude like a lamp in a darkened room. At first, the light is small, but the more you practice, the brighter it grows. Eventually, that light is what others see when they meet you. It becomes part of your aura. And in a world filled with shadows of financial stress, people are drawn to light. Gratitude is not naive. It does not ignore problems or deny the existence of challenges. Instead, it gives you strength to meet them without collapsing. It gives you patience to wait when opportunities are ripening. It gives you resilience to rise after failure. In this sense, gratitude is a kind of wealth long before money arrives. It is a wealth of spirit that makes financial wealth more likely, more sustainable, and more meaningful. As you absorb these words, consider this. What energy do you radiate each day when it comes to money? Do others feel heaviness when you speak of finances, or do they feel uplifted, inspired, even peaceful? If you wish to change your financial world, you may not need to start with numbers. You may need to start with gratitude. For once you shift the energy, the magnet begins to work. And this magnet will guide us into the next step of our journey. How to bring gratitude into daily financial practices, not as theory, but as tangible actions that shape the flow of money in real life. Gratitude becomes most powerful, not in lofty ideals, but in the details of daily life. It is one thing to understand that thankfulness attracts prosperity. It is another to weave that thankfulness into the small decisions you make with money each day. When gratitude becomes part of your financial habits, something profound shifts. Money stops being a source of constant tension and starts becoming a flow you can trust. Think of how most people handle their finances. They pay bills with dread, as if each outgoing dollar is a wound. They track expenses with resentment, feeling that life is unfair, that money is always running away from them. This attitude, repeated day after day, builds a pattern of stress, and stress clouds vision. Stress makes you miss opportunities, resist generosity, and treat money as an enemy. But if you approach the very same tasks with gratitude, they transform. A bill becomes evidence that you have electricity, a home, a phone that connects you to the world. An expense becomes proof that you are alive, moving, growing. Gratitude doesn't erase the responsibility, but it softens it and reframes it. Try this. The next time you pay a bill, pause and whisper, "Thank you." Thank you for the water that runs through your home. Thank you for the power that lights your evenings. Thank you for the service that keeps you connected. By shifting your focus from loss to appreciation, you honor the flow of money rather than resist it. Resistance builds blockage. Gratitude builds circulation. Another powerful practice is keeping what some call a gratitude ledger. Just as accountants track income and expenses, you can track blessings connected to money. Each day, note at least one financial moment you are grateful for. It could be small, a discount you received, a meal shared that didn't cost much but brought joy, a payment that arrived on time, or even the simple fact that you had coins in your pocket when you needed them. These entries may seem insignificant, but over time, they rewire your perception. Instead of seeing only lack, your eyes begin to notice constant streams of provision. Edgar Cayce often emphasized that every action, even the smallest, holds spiritual significance. To treat a dollar with respect is to align yourself with the universal law of harmony. When you appreciate a small amount, you signal to life that you are ready for more. If you dismiss small streams, larger ones rarely appear. For the law of life is trust. How you treat little things reveals how you will treat larger ones. Gratitude in the little is the key to unlocking abundance in the greater. Consider also how you handle daily spending. Most people swipe a card or hand over cash without thinking, often with irritation. But what if each act of spending became a ritual of gratitude? You buy groceries and say silently, "Thank you for nourishing my body." You pay for gas and say, "Thank you for the freedom to travel." This reframing doesn't make you reckless, it makes you conscious. Conscious spending guided by gratitude leads to wiser decisions because it keeps you aware of value rather than blinded by habit. And there is more. Gratitude in finances is not only about expenses, but also about income. How often do people receive a paycheck and immediately complain about how little it is, how much will vanish in bills? This complaint closes the door before gratitude can even enter. What if, instead, you greeted every income, no matter how small, with genuine thanks? Thank you for this provision. Thank you for the chance to use it wisely. That energy shifts your inner posture, and others notice. Employers sense it. Clients feel it. Opportunities respond to it. Even the act of saving can be infused with gratitude. Instead of seeing saving as deprivation, money locked away and inaccessible, you can see it as a blessing of foresight. Each dollar saved is a friend waiting for you in the future. Each coin put aside is a note of gratitude to your future self. When saving becomes an act of thanks rather than an act of fear, it grows not only in size but in meaning. There are countless stories of people whose financial lives shifted simply because they changed their daily attitude. One man began a journal of gratitude for every transaction. He wrote a line of thanks each time money left his hands or entered them. Within a year, he reported that not only did he feel less stress, but opportunities for side income and partnerships came unexpectedly. He hadn't earned millions overnight, but his entire relationship with money felt lighter, more trustworthy, more alive. The energy had shifted, and the results followed. Remember, money is not inert. It responds to how we treat it. Treat it with bitterness, and it feels like a burden. Treat it with gratitude, and it becomes a companion. Gratitude makes you a steward rather than a slave. It reminds you that finances are not just numbers to be managed, but relationships to be nurtured. Relationships between you, your resources, and the life that flows through them. As you carry this into your daily practice, ask yourself, how can I express gratitude with the money in my hands today? It might be as small as smiling when you pay for a coffee, or as deep as keeping a journal of financial blessings. Each act, however simple, builds the pattern. And as the pattern grows, money begins to feel different. Less like a heavy chain, more like a river carrying you forward. And this river carries us toward the next realization, that gratitude not only transforms the way we handle money, but also the way we feel about it. For gratitude teaches us the psychology of enough, and in that awareness, we discover that enough is the gateway to more. There is a quiet power in the word enough. For many, it feels elusive, as if no matter how much they earn, save, or accumulate, it never seems to arrive. The scarcity mindset whispers, "It is not enough. It will never be enough." And with that whisper, peace is stolen. But gratitude interrupts that voice. Gratitude teaches us the psychology of enough, the ability to recognize sufficiency in the present moment, to see what already exists as meaningful and worthy of thanks. When you practice gratitude, you begin to notice that enough is not about numbers, but about perspective. Two people can hold the same amount of money. One sees it as insufficient, the other as a foundation. The difference lies not in the balance, but in the belief. And Edgar Cayce's teachings remind us again and again that belief shapes reality. What you believe to be lacking often shrinks further away. What you honor as enough tends to multiply. Consider the story of a woman working an ordinary job, her paycheck covering her needs but leaving little margin. For years, she lived in quiet frustration, always longing for more, convinced she was trapped. One day, she began a simple practice. Each evening, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for related to money. Sometimes it was a small discount at the grocery store. Sometimes it was the fact that her paycheck arrived reliably. Sometimes it was simply that she had a roof overhead. Over time, her anxiety softened. She began to see her life not as a cage, but as a platform. And from that platform, new possibilities appeared. She applied for training, gained new skills, and within 2 years, her income doubled. Gratitude shifted her from never enough to thankful for what is, and that shift opened the way for more. This is the paradox. Those who feel they never have enough rarely receive more, while those who embrace gratitude for what they have often expand into greater abundance. The psychology of enough does not make you passive. It makes you clear. It does not kill ambition. It directs ambition. When you are consumed by lack, ambition becomes frantic, reckless, and driven by fear. When you are grounded in gratitude, ambition becomes creative, steady, and guided by trust. Think of it this way: a glass half full of water. To the mind of scarcity, it is a problem, only half. To the mind of gratitude, it is a gift, half full and ready to quench thirst. And here is the hidden truth. Those who honor the half-full glass are more likely to be given a refill. Life responds not to complaint, but to recognition. Recognition is gratitude in action. Edgar Cayce spoke often about aligning with universal law. He taught that when we live in harmony with spiritual truths, material needs are met more naturally. Gratitude aligns us with that harmony. It whispers to the universe, I trust the flow, I honor what I have, I release fear. And in that trust, doors open that would otherwise remain shut. Some may wonder, does this mean I should never want more? Should I settle? No. Gratitude is not about settling. It is about rooting yourself in peace so that your pursuit of more comes from joy, not desperation. To say, I have enough today does not mean I will not grow. It means your growth begins from sufficiency rather than from panic. And growth born from sufficiency is sustainable, while growth driven by panic often collapses under its own weight. Let us return to daily life. The psychology of enough can be practiced in the simplest moments. When you open your wallet and see a small bill, instead of sighing, you can whisper thanks. When you prepare a meal, instead of lamenting what is missing, you can give thanks for what is present. When you receive a paycheck, instead of grumbling that it is too small, you can honor it as provision. These practices shift the mind from grasping to receiving, from resenting to appreciating. And slowly you begin to feel lighter. You begin to realize that wealth is not only about accumulation, but about perception. Imagine a person drowning in debt, but carrying gratitude as their compass. Instead of collapsing under shame, they acknowledge the lessons the debt taught them and give thanks for the chance to rebuild. That attitude frees their mind from paralysis and empowers them to take action, renegotiate terms, create a plan, seek help. Gratitude does not erase the debt, but it gives them the strength to rise above it. And that strength is wealth in itself. The psychology of enough also changes how we compare ourselves to others. Without gratitude, the sight of someone else's success feels like a threat. With gratitude, it feels like proof that abundance exists in the world, and therefore can flow to you as well. Instead of envy, you feel inspiration. Instead of competition, you feel collaboration. Gratitude turns comparison from poison into possibility. So I ask you, what would it feel like right now to breathe deeply and say, I have enough for this moment, and I am grateful? How would your chest feel? How would your shoulders relax? How would your mind clear? That state is not weakness, it is power. It is the soil from which wise financial choices grow. Carry this truth with you. Enough is not a number. Enough is a state of mind. Gratitude teaches you to see it, to honor it, and to live from it. And once you embrace the psychology of enough, you will be ready for the next step, seeing money itself not as a possession to clutch, but as a living flow to participate in. Money is often treated as if it were a static thing, a pile of coins, a stack of bills, a balance frozen on a bank screen. People cling to it, hoard it, fear losing it, or resent not having more. Yet if we look more deeply, money behaves less like a rock and more like water. It is not meant to be trapped. It is meant to flow. And gratitude is the current that helps us recognize and honor that flow. Edgar Cayce often spoke of life itself as circulation. Blood flows, breath flows, energy flows. When flow is blocked, illness appears. The same principle applies to money. When money circulates with gratitude, it nourishes. When it is clutched tightly with fear, it stagnates. Gratitude teaches us to treat money not as an object to be possessed, but as a living current we are invited to participate in. Imagine a river. If you build walls to keep every drop for yourself, the water grows stagnant, unhealthy, and lifeless. If you let the river flow, it refreshes, it nourishes the land, and new streams return to feed it. Money works in this way. When you release it with thanks, whether in paying bills, giving, or investing, you keep it alive. You allow circulation, and circulation is what ensures that more continues to come. Consider how different it feels to spend money from fear versus from gratitude. Fear says, every dollar leaving weakens me. Gratitude says, every dollar leaving fulfills a purpose. Fear closes the heart. Gratitude keeps it open, and in that openness, you begin to see money less as loss and more as participation in a larger rhythm of life. One man once told the story of how he changed his relationship to finances. For years, he obsessed over saving every penny, refusing to give, refusing to spend except on bare essentials. He thought he was being wise, but in truth, he lived with constant anxiety. His money did not grow because his fear suffocated his ability to invest or collaborate. Then he learned to view money as circulation. He began to give small amounts in gratitude, started to spend with appreciation instead of dread, and invested in opportunities with trust rather than suspicion. Within a few years, not only had his finances grown, but his stress had melted. He described it as learning to swim with the current instead of always fighting it. Gratitude is the key here. It is what shifts your perception of money from static to dynamic. When you say thank you as money enters your life, you acknowledge the flow's generosity. When you say thank you as it leaves, you affirm trust that the flow will continue. Each act of gratitude is like opening a gate, keeping circulation alive. Think also about generosity. Many people fear that giving diminishes them. But gratitude reframes giving as joining the rhythm of life. When you give with a thankful heart, you participate in circulation, and circulation ensures return. Edgar Cayce's readings often highlighted the law of sowing and reaping, not as punishment or reward, but as a natural rhythm. Gratitude-infused giving is sowing into the stream, and streams always return. Even in daily language, we find hints of this truth. We speak of cash flow. We speak of currency, a word sharing its root with current, the movement of water. The language itself suggests that money is alive in motion, not dead in possession. Gratitude is what helps us align with that natural design rather than resisting it. Practical ways to embody this are simple yet powerful. The next time you receive payment, pause and give thanks. Not only for the amount, but for the energy it represents. Someone valued your time, your service, your effort. The next time you spend, pause and give thanks for the provider, for the resource you now enjoy, for the chance to contribute to another's livelihood. These small pauses rewire your experience of money from stress to trust, from fear to flow. And what about saving? Gratitude here means seeing savings not as money locked away, but as part of the circulation, set aside to flow back to you at a future moment when you most need it. Each act of saving becomes a silent thank you to your future self. It is not hoarding. It is honoring the rhythm of life by preparing for the ebb and flow. This way of seeing changes not only your emotions, but also your decisions. When you treat money as a flow, you become less reckless, but also less fearful. You no longer grip so tightly that you cannot breathe, nor do you release so recklessly that you sink. Gratitude helps you find the balance, open enough to let it move, wise enough to direct its course. So pause and ask yourself, do you treat money as a rock to be clutched or as a river to be joined? If it is a rock, it will always feel heavy. If it is a river, it will always feel alive. Gratitude is what turns weight into current. As we move forward, let us explore how this current of gratitude doesn't just affect the money itself, but also the relationships around it. For money flows most powerfully, not in isolation, but in the trust and cooperation between people. And gratitude is the bridge that builds those connections. When we think about money, we often picture it in solitary terms. My paycheck, my bank account, my savings, my bills. Yet in truth, money flows most powerfully through relationships. Every financial opportunity arises from trust, collaboration, or exchange between people. And here is where gratitude becomes more than a private virtue. It becomes a bridge that links hearts, builds bonds, and opens doors that would remain locked to fear or entitlement. Edgar Cayce repeatedly reminded us that our material lives cannot be separated from our spiritual lives. He said that every relationship we hold has karmic weight. Every connection has the potential to be a channel of blessing or a mirror of lesson. In finances, this law shows up clearly. Opportunities rarely fall from the sky. They arrive through people. Employers, clients, partners, mentors, friends, each becomes a vessel through which money flows. And what strengthens those vessels? Gratitude. Picture two people seeking financial help. One comes with bitterness, listing every injustice, demanding assistance with a tone of entitlement. The other comes with genuine gratitude, acknowledging even the smallest kindness offered. Whose energy would you want to support? Whose spirit would make you feel safe to invest your trust, your time, your resources? Gratitude is magnetic, not only to money itself, but to the people who become channels of prosperity. Think also of networking, a word that often feels cold and mechanical. Strip away the jargon, and networking is simply relationship building. But how are relationships built? Not through constant requests, but through appreciation. A thank you note after a meeting, a word of gratitude for someone's advice, a recognition of another's effort. These small acts of acknowledgement plant seeds of trust. And trust is the soil from which partnerships and opportunities grow. There are countless real-life stories that illustrate this truth. Consider the young entrepreneur who launched a small business with limited capital. She made it a practice to express gratitude to every customer, every supplier, every mentor who gave her time. She did not just say thanks as a formality. She meant it. She carried it in her tone and eyes. Word spread, not only about her product, but about her spirit. Within a few years, opportunities for collaboration poured in, and investors approached her, not because she begged, but because they felt drawn to her energy. Gratitude was the invisible partner in her success. Gratitude also transforms strained financial relationships. Many families and partnerships suffer because money becomes a battlefield. Accusations, resentment, secrecy. Yet when gratitude is practiced intentionally, the atmosphere shifts. Imagine a spouse saying, "Thank you for how you manage our budget," instead of criticizing overspending. Imagine a business partner saying, "I appreciate the risk you took," instead of focusing only on mistakes. These small recognitions soften tension, rebuild trust, and create the space for better financial cooperation. Why does gratitude work this way? Because at its core, money is trust extended between people. A dollar bill only has value because we collectively agree it does. Likewise, an agreement, a contract, or a handshake depends on the trust between those involved. Gratitude reinforces trust. It communicates, "I see you, I value you, I honor what you bring." And that communication deepens bonds, making financial flow stronger and steadier. Edgar Cayce spoke of karma not as punishment, but as opportunity for growth. If we meet someone in this life with whom we share financial tension, perhaps gratitude is the healing tool. By choosing appreciation over accusation, we break cycles of bitterness and plant cycles of blessing. What begins as a simple "thank you" can ripple into healed relationships, restored partnerships, and unexpected opportunities. Practical steps matter here. Begin by noticing the people who touch your financial life: the cashier, the colleague, the employer, the client, the family member. Pause, even silently, and give thanks for them. Write a note of appreciation to someone who supported your career. Verbally acknowledge a partner's effort in managing a household expense. These actions may feel small, but they are like drops of water feeding a stream. Over time, the stream widens into a river of goodwill, and in that river, money flows more abundantly. Gratitude also strengthens your own sense of worth within relationships. When you practice it, you begin to see yourself not as a beggar of opportunities, but as a participant in mutual exchange. You recognize that every relationship is a two-way flow. You receive and you give. Gratitude makes you a more generous partner, and generosity attracts generosity in return. So as you move forward, ask yourself, how often do I express gratitude to those who are connected to my financial world? How might my opportunities expand if I built my relationships not only on contracts, but on thankfulness? If money flows through people, then gratitude is the current that makes that flow strong and steady. This current carries us now to the next realization. Gratitude does not only build trust outward, it also transforms the inner storms we carry. For many, money is a source of fear, of anxiety, of sleepless nights. Gratitude becomes the light that dissolves those shadows, and this is where we turn next. Fear is perhaps the most common emotion tied to money. It lurks behind overdue bills, behind the fear of losing a job, behind the anxiety of unexpected expenses. For many, the very thought of finances triggers a tightening in the chest, a heaviness in the stomach. Fear whispers constantly. What if it runs out? What if I can't provide? What if disaster strikes? This cycle can consume even those with stable incomes, for fear is not about numbers, it is about perception. And here lies the gift of gratitude. It dissolves fear, not by ignoring reality, but by reframing it in light of trust. Edgar Cayce often taught that fear is the greatest enemy of the soul, because it blinds us to truth. Fear contracts while gratitude expands. Fear says, I am alone in this struggle. Gratitude says, I am sustained, I am supported, I am part of a greater flow. And when gratitude is practiced, the grip of fear loosens. Think of a time when you faced a financial difficulty, a sudden medical bill, a job loss, a debt that seemed overwhelming. If you dwelled only on fear, every option looked darker, every possibility closed. But if you found one small thing to be grateful for, the friend who called to check in, the skill you still carried, even the simple breath in your lungs, the fear softened, even if just for a moment. That softening gave you the space to see solutions you could not see before. Gratitude, then, is not a denial of fear, but an antidote. It steadies the mind so that wisdom can act. Consider a man burdened with debt. Each night he lay awake, rehearsing his failures, drowning in shame. His fear grew so great he avoided answering the phone, terrified of creditors. One evening, out of desperation, he wrote a simple line: I am grateful I still have the strength to work tomorrow. The next day he wrote another: I am grateful for the lessons this struggle is teaching me. Slowly, gratitude carved cracks into the wall of fear. Within months, his mindset shifted from paralysis to action. He reached out for help, negotiated payments, and began rebuilding. His circumstances changed not because fear vanished overnight, but because gratitude gave him the courage to step forward despite fear. Fear thrives in darkness. Gratitude brings light, and light always dispels shadows. Even the smallest spark of thankfulness can illuminate a path through the darkest financial valley. That is why gratitude must be practiced, especially when fear is loud. When the paycheck feels too small, give thanks for its presence. When bills pile up, give thanks for the services they represent. When uncertainty looms, give thanks for the strengths within you. Each act of gratitude is like striking a match in a cave. Fear recoils, and you see your next step more clearly. Another truth is this: fear isolates, while gratitude connects. When you are afraid about money, you withdraw. You avoid conversations, you hide your struggles, you shrink your world. But when you practice gratitude, even in hardship, you open your heart. You find yourself saying, thank you for being here, to a friend who listens, or thank you for the chance to try again when someone offers support. This openness builds trust and invites help, breaking the isolation fear created. Cayce described gratitude as a state of alignment with divine law. Fear is out of alignment. It resists, it distrusts. Gratitude restores alignment by reminding us that we are not abandoned, that there is order even in chaos, that life itself is a gift. This alignment does not eliminate financial challenges, but it changes how you meet them. Instead of collapsing, you stand. Instead of panicking, you plan. Instead of cursing, you create. Let us make this practical. The next time fear about money rises, pause and breathe. Name one thing, just one, for which you are grateful in that moment. Write it down, say it aloud, whisper it in your heart. Repeat the practice daily. It may not erase the bill, but it will transform the way you approach it. Fear will lose its dominance, and gratitude will anchor you in peace. From that peace, solutions emerge. Stories abound of people who transformed their financial lives, not by winning the lottery or inheriting wealth, but by changing how they responded to fear. A woman once said, "Gratitude didn't pay my rent, but it gave me the courage to call my landlord and explain honestly. To my surprise, he offered me an extension." That opportunity was always possible, but fear had kept her silent. Gratitude gave her voice. So ask yourself now, what fears about money do you carry? And how might gratitude loosen their grip? You may not erase every fear at once, but you can choose to let gratitude speak louder than fear. Over time, that choice becomes strength, and that strength becomes freedom. And it is freedom that leads us into the next chapter of our journey, the stories of transformation. For countless lives have been reshaped when fear gave way to gratitude. And through their testimonies, we see what becomes possible when thankfulness turns into a way of living. Stories have a way of reaching us in places that theories cannot. We may nod at principles, but when we hear how another life was changed, something inside us stirs with recognition and hope. Gratitude in finances may sound poetic, but it is lived most clearly in the real struggles and triumphs of ordinary people. These stories show us that transformation is not only possible, it is happening again and again. Take the case of Daniel, a man who once lived under the crushing weight of debt. He worked 2 jobs, yet no matter how much he earned, he felt suffocated. His nights were sleepless, his days filled with anxiety. His energy was so heavy that even friends began to avoid him. Then one evening, exhausted, he stumbled on a journal exercise. Write 3 things you are grateful for about money. At first, it seemed ridiculous. What was there to be grateful for? Yet desperate, he tried. His first list was shaky. I am grateful my paycheck arrived. I am grateful I have shoes. I am grateful my children ate dinner tonight. The next day, he tried again. Slowly, gratitude shifted something inside him. His fear eased. His conversations became calmer. His openness attracted support he hadn't expected. Within 2 years, Daniel was not only out of debt, but had started a small business. He often said, "It wasn't just money that changed. It was me. Gratitude freed me from fear." Or consider Maria, a young single mother juggling work and school. For years, she carried resentment, convinced that life had shortchanged her. Bills were battles, and every purchase felt like proof of failure. One day, she decided to experiment. Instead of cursing her expenses, she whispered thanks as she paid them. "Thank you for this electricity bill. It means we had light through the night. Thank you for this tuition bill. It means I am moving forward." At first it felt forced, but soon it became genuine. The shift in her energy was so noticeable that co-workers commented on her calmness. Not long after, one of them connected her to a better-paying job. Gratitude did not erase her challenges, but it transformed her attitude. And that transformation opened doors. Another story comes from a couple who constantly fought about money. Their conversations were filled with accusations. You spend too much. You never save enough. Their home became tense, their love strained. At the urging of a counselor, they began a new ritual. Each week, they had to name one thing they were grateful for about how the other handled money. At first, it was awkward, but soon walls began to crumble. "Thank you for always making sure the bills are paid on time," one said. "Thank you for finding the best deals for groceries," the other replied. That simple practice of gratitude melted hostility, and in its place grew cooperation. They found they could finally plan together, dream together, even save together. Gratitude repaired not only their finances, but their relationship. Edgar Cayce spoke often of how attitudes shape outcomes. He said that even illness could respond to shifts in consciousness, and the same law applies to finances. The lives of Daniel, Maria, and countless others bear witness. When gratitude becomes the lens, possibilities expand, relationships heal, and fear loses its grip. These are not isolated miracles. They are examples of a universal principle at work. Gratitude clears the heart so that opportunity can enter. Gratitude shifts energy so that others feel safe to trust and collaborate. Gratitude transforms resentment into resilience. You may find yourself wondering, could this really work for me? These stories exist to answer that question. They say yes, not because gratitude guarantees instant riches, but because it guarantees a shift in you. And when you change, your world cannot help but respond. So perhaps the invitation now is to imagine your own story. What would it look like if 6 months from now you told someone, "My financial life began to change when I started practicing gratitude"? What habits might shift? What relationships might heal? What opportunities might appear? Your story is waiting to be written, and gratitude is the first sentence. As we move forward, we will explore one of the most practical tools for writing that story, the Journal of Financial Gratitude. For while stories inspire, daily practice sustains, and it is through the simple act of writing thanks that gratitude deepens, expands, and begins to weave itself into every corner of your financial life. The practice of journaling has long been a doorway into clarity. It takes what is hidden in the mind and heart and brings it into visible form on paper. When it comes to finances, most people keep ledgers of expenses and income, but few keep ledgers of gratitude. Yet this is one of the most powerful tools you can use to transform your relationship with money, the Journal of Financial Gratitude. Imagine beginning or ending each day with a simple ritual. You sit with a notebook and write down 3 things connected to money that you are grateful for. They don't have to be grand or impressive. They can be as small as finding a coin on the sidewalk, as ordinary as receiving your paycheck on time, as personal as being able to buy food for your family, or as subtle as the wisdom to resist an unnecessary purchase. By recording these moments, you train your eyes to notice blessings you would otherwise overlook. Edgar Cayce often emphasized that thoughts held consistently become patterns, and patterns create outcomes. The act of writing gratitude into a journal solidifies it. It anchors thankfulness in both mind and body. The hand moves, the eye sees, the heart feels, and together they form a habit that slowly rewires how you perceive money. Fear and resentment loosen their hold, while appreciation grows stronger. Consider the story of Jonathan, who had long struggled with financial anxiety. Each month, he obsessed over bills, drowning in worry. At a friend's suggestion, he began a gratitude journal focused only on money. At first, his entries were hesitant. "I'm grateful my rent cleared. I'm grateful for the free lunch at work." But as days turned into weeks, he noticed something changing. His list grew more specific, more joyful. "I'm grateful for the skills that let me earn this income. I'm grateful for the chance to help my neighbor with groceries." Within 6 months, Jonathan said he no longer woke up panicked about money. His financial situation had not dramatically changed, but his peace of mind had, and that peace gave him courage to pursue new opportunities he once avoided. The journal becomes more than a record. It becomes a mirror. On difficult days, you can look back and see evidence that provision has always been present, that blessings, however small, always arrive. This memory strengthens you in moments of fear. It reminds you that money is not only a struggle, it is also a story of sustenance. Practical steps make this accessible to anyone. Choose a small notebook or even a section of your phone's Notes app. Dedicate it solely to financial gratitude. Set a consistent time, perhaps each morning with your coffee or each night before sleep. Write 3 entries, no more, no less. They can be repetitive. The power is not in variety, but in consistency. Over time, you will notice your perception shifting. You can also expand the practice. At the end of each week, review your entries and highlight one that felt especially meaningful. Reflect on why it mattered. Did it involve someone's kindness? Did it remind you of your own ability? Did it reveal an unexpected blessing? This reflection deepens the roots of gratitude, making it more than a fleeting emotion. Families can adopt this practice together. Imagine parents and children sitting once a week to share something they were grateful for financially. A child might say, "I'm grateful for the new pencils we bought." A parent might add, "I'm grateful we had gas for the car." Such sharing not only builds gratitude, but also teaches the next generation to see money not only as stress, but as flow. The journal of gratitude also acts as a safeguard against comparison. When you feel tempted to envy others, reviewing your own pages reminds you that your life is already filled with provision. It shifts your focus from what I lack to what I have, from why not me to thank you for me. In time, this journal becomes a testimony. Imagine looking back after a year and seeing hundreds of entries, each a seed of gratitude planted. The sheer weight of those entries can overwhelm your doubts. They stand as proof that life has been generous, that gratitude has multiplied, that abundance has touched your path again and again. Edgar Cayce once described gratitude as the memory of the heart. A journal of financial gratitude is precisely that, a memory bank that guards you against despair. It is not merely sentimental, it is strategic. It shapes your thoughts, your emotions, and even your decisions. A grateful mind invests differently, saves differently, spends differently, and relates to others differently. So as you consider this practice, ask yourself, will you take the time to record your gratitude today? One page, one sentence, one word is enough to begin. The journal is not for perfection, but for transformation. And when transformation begins, your decisions begin to change. Gratitude clears the fog of fear and resentment, giving you vision, and that vision leads us next into wiser financial choices, decisions rooted not in panic, but in appreciation. Every decision we make with money is influenced by the state of our heart. Some decisions are born from fear, some from greed, some from pressure, and some from peace. Gratitude belongs to the last category. When gratitude takes root, it changes not only how you feel about money, but how you choose with money. It becomes a compass, pointing you toward choices that sustain, uplift, and align with your values. Think of a moment when you had to make a financial decision under pressure. Maybe it was deciding whether to take on debt, whether to buy something costly, or whether to invest in an opportunity. If fear dominated, you likely felt rushed, tight, and cloudy. Fear narrows vision. It makes you grab at short-term relief, even if long-term it harms you. Gratitude, by contrast, slows the breath. It expands perspective. It says, even if I do not have everything, I am thankful for what is here. I do not need to panic. From that posture, your mind is clearer and your choices are wiser. Edgar Cayce often said that our mental and spiritual conditions shape our material world. He noted that when people acted from a place of alignment, faith, love, gratitude, their outcomes carried harmony, while decisions rooted in fear created further difficulty. This is as true with money as with health. A grateful spirit becomes like a clean lens through which you can see options accurately, without the distortion of fear. Consider the story of Angela, who once faced the decision to leave a stable but unfulfilling job. Fear told her, "Stay safe. You can't risk losing this paycheck." But gratitude reminded her, "I am thankful for the skills I've gained here, thankful for the savings I've built, thankful for the opportunities still to come." That gratitude gave her courage to step forward. Within months, she found work more aligned with her talents, and her income even grew. Her decision was not reckless. It was rooted in thankfulness for what already was, and that thankfulness opened the way for more. Another example comes from a man tempted to make a quick, risky investment after hearing promises of high returns. His fear of missing out nearly pushed him, but he paused and wrote in his gratitude journal, "I am thankful for the stability I already have, thankful for the wisdom to choose carefully." That moment of gratitude gave him clarity. He declined the offer and months later learned it had collapsed, costing others dearly. Gratitude protected him by clearing his vision. This is the subtle yet profound truth. Gratitude anchors you. It keeps you from being tossed about by panic, envy, or greed. When you feel anchored, you can evaluate choices with patience. You no longer act simply to escape discomfort. You act to align with your long-term values and peace. How can you apply this practically? Begin by making gratitude a step in every major financial decision. Before signing a contract, pause and name 3 things you are grateful for. Before making a purchase, breathe and give thanks for what you already own. Before investing, write down the blessings that have already come through your work. This practice shifts your mind from "what if I lose" to "I already have," and in that shift, fear loses its grip. Gratitude also helps when decisions involve others. Imagine a couple debating a purchase. If both approach with complaint, tension rises. But if one says, "I'm grateful we can even consider this," the atmosphere softens. They move from adversaries to allies. Gratitude restores unity, and unity makes for better decisions. Cayce often warned that worry and haste create confusion. Gratitude creates clarity. It is like light breaking through clouds, showing the road ahead. This doesn't mean every choice will be easy or every outcome guaranteed, but it does mean you will walk with more peace, more wisdom, and more alignment. And in finances, peace and clarity are treasures greater than numbers on paper. So pause and reflect. What financial decisions lie before you now? Can you face them through the lens of gratitude rather than fear? Can you root yourself in thanks before you act? If so, you may discover that the right path becomes clearer than you thought. And with clearer decisions comes the strength to face even the hardest of financial realities: debt. Gratitude may seem impossible in the shadow of debt, but it is precisely there that its light can be most transformative. That is where we turn next, from debt to freedom, with gratitude as our guide. Debt is one of the heaviest words in our financial vocabulary. For some, it feels like a chain around the ankle, dragging them down no matter how hard they try to rise. For others, it feels like a shadow, following them into every thought, every plan, every dream. Debt carries not only numbers, but emotions: shame, fear, frustration, even hopelessness. Yet here again, gratitude offers a different way of seeing. Gratitude does not erase debt overnight, but it reframes it, transforming it from a prison into a pathway, from a burden into a teacher, from despair into direction. Edgar Cayce taught that challenges are never punishments, but opportunities for growth. Karma, in his language, was not about suffering for suffering's sake. It was about learning what the soul needed to learn. Debt, too, can be seen in this light. Instead of cursing it, gratitude invites us to ask, what is this experience teaching me? Perhaps it is teaching patience, responsibility, discipline, or humility. Perhaps it is training us to value what we once took for granted. Gratitude transforms debt into a classroom. Consider the story of Felicia, who found herself drowning in credit card bills. For months, she carried deep shame, avoiding calls, feeling trapped. One evening, she decided to write down one thing about her debt for which she could be grateful. She wrote, "I am grateful that this debt reminds me of the generosity others once extended to me when I needed resources." The next night, she wrote, I am grateful that I have the strength to work and repay. Slowly, her perspective shifted. The debt did not shrink overnight, but her spirit strengthened. She began to make consistent payments, spoke openly with creditors, and discovered new opportunities to earn. Within a few years, the debt was gone. She later said, "Gratitude didn't pay my bills, but it gave me the strength to keep moving until the bills were paid." Gratitude also dissolves the shame that often clings to debt. Shame isolates, whispering, "You are a failure." But gratitude replies, "You are still learning, and you are still alive." This shift matters because shame paralyzes, while gratitude mobilizes. When you see debt not as proof of failure, but as a teacher, you regain the courage to act. And action, steady, small, consistent, is what creates freedom. Even the act of making payments can be reframed through gratitude. Instead of resenting each installment, you can whisper thanks. "Thank you that I have income to pay this. Thank you that each payment brings me closer to freedom. Thank you that I am trusted with this responsibility, and I will honor it." This posture turns payment from punishment into progress. Each dollar leaving is no longer a wound. It is a step toward liberation. One man described how gratitude transformed his journey out of debt. For years, he despised the monthly payments on his student loans, feeling they stole his future. But when he began practicing gratitude, he realized, this debt exists because someone believed in my education enough to lend me the resources. I will honor that gift. With that perspective, his resentment faded. He became disciplined in his budget, celebrated each payment, and eventually reached freedom. Looking back, he said, "Gratitude made me realize my debt wasn't a curse. It was evidence that I had been given a chance." Cayce often spoke about aligning with divine law, and one of those laws is circulation. Debt, when honored with gratitude, becomes part of circulation. It represents what has been received and what will be returned. Gratitude ensures that return happens with dignity, not despair. Of course, gratitude does not mean ignoring responsibility. It does not mean excusing reckless spending or pretending numbers don't matter. It means facing reality with a different spirit, one that chooses trust over panic, appreciation over bitterness, responsibility over avoidance. This shift strengthens not only your finances, but also your character. And character is the wealth that no one can take away. Practical steps can help here. If you are carrying debt, begin by writing one line of gratitude about it each day. Thank the lessons, thank the ability to repay, thank the chance to grow stronger. Then reframe each payment as progress. Celebrate milestones, however small. Share your gratitude with others who support you. Over time, you will notice that debt no longer defines you. It refines you. And one day, when the final payment is made, your gratitude will be even deeper. You will not only celebrate freedom from numbers, but also the wealth of wisdom, discipline, and resilience you gained along the way. From debt to freedom, gratitude guides the path. And once freedom is found, we begin to see money itself in an even higher light, not only as numbers or flow, but as part of a divine order. This is where our journey next leads, the spiritual side of prosperity. For many, prosperity is reduced to numbers, salaries, savings, investments, assets. But Edgar Cayce's work constantly pointed toward a deeper layer, the spiritual side of prosperity. He taught that money, like health or relationships, is not separate from spirit, but a mirror of our alignment with divine order. Gratitude is the key that reveals this truth. When we see money not just as currency, but as part of a greater spiritual law, it stops being an idol or an enemy and becomes a mirror of our consciousness. Think of it this way. Prosperity is not merely what flows into your bank account. It is the harmony that flows through your life. If you gain wealth but lose peace, is that prosperity? If you grow rich but live in fear, is that abundance? Cayce would say no. True prosperity is wholeness, physical needs met, relationships rooted in love, work filled with purpose, and a heart at rest. Money is simply one expression of that wholeness. Gratitude brings you into alignment with this higher view. It teaches you to see beyond the number and into the meaning. When you say thank you for your income, you are not worshiping the money. You are acknowledging the source behind it. When you whisper thanks for paying a bill, you are not glorifying the bill. You are recognizing the divine flow that sustains your life. Gratitude sanctifies money by placing it in its rightful context. Not as master, but as servant. Not as goal, but as tool. Consider Sarah, a woman who once chased prosperity as mere wealth. She worked long hours, earned well, and bought luxuries. Yet she was restless, anxious, and unfulfilled. Her life looked abundant, but felt empty. One evening, she read a line from Cayce: "Seek ye first the kingdom, and all else shall be added." She began to reflect. What if prosperity is more than things? What if it is a state of harmony? She started practicing gratitude not only for her possessions, but for her breath, her family, her opportunities to serve. Slowly, her anxiety eased. Her work felt less like striving and more like participation in something larger. Money still flowed, but it no longer defined her. Gratitude shifted her prosperity from materialism to spiritual abundance. This spiritual dimension changes the way we measure wealth. Instead of asking, "How much do I have?" gratitude invites us to ask, "How aligned am I with the flow of life?" Instead of hoarding, we ask, "How can I circulate blessings?" Instead of competing, we ask, "How can I contribute?" In this light, prosperity is no longer a race, but a rhythm. And gratitude is the heartbeat of that rhythm. Cayce often described money as an energy of exchange. When we use it selfishly, the energy contracts. When we use it with gratitude and service, the energy expands. This expansion is the essence of spiritual prosperity. For example, a donation given begrudgingly may fulfill a duty, but a gift given with gratitude multiplies both in the giver and receiver. The same dollar carries different weight depending on the spirit behind it. Gratitude infuses money with meaning, turning transactions into blessings. Even saving and investing take on a new dimension when seen spiritually. Instead of fearing the future, you can see your savings as gratitude toward tomorrow. Instead of hoarding from greed, you can invest with thankfulness for the chance to grow resources that may bless others as well. Gratitude purifies intention, and pure intention aligns with divine law. In that alignment, prosperity becomes more stable, more joyful, more complete. This is not to deny the importance of financial planning, budgeting, or wise stewardship. These are practical tools, but without gratitude, they remain mechanical. With gratitude, they become spiritual practices. Paying bills becomes a prayer. Saving becomes an act of hope. Giving becomes a song of thankfulness. And in this way, money ceases to be separate from spirit. It becomes an expression of it. So reflect. What if your next paycheck, your next bill, your next purchase were treated not just as financial events, but as spiritual opportunities? What if each became a chance to align with divine order through gratitude? Your relationship with money would no longer be filled with fear or greed, but with reverence and trust. That is the essence of spiritual prosperity. And as this understanding deepens, we come to the final realization. Gratitude, practiced over a lifetime, becomes more than a tool. It becomes wealth itself. It transforms money from burden to flow, from possession to blessing, from anxiety to freedom. Gratitude, lived consistently, becomes lifelong wealth. And that is where our journey will end. Gratitude, when lived day after day, becomes more than a practice. It becomes wealth itself. Not wealth that can be stolen or lost, not wealth measured only in numbers, but wealth that infuses every corner of life with light. When gratitude becomes your posture, money ceases to be a chain or chase. It becomes a current that moves through you, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always alive. Think of the difference this makes over a lifetime. A person who clutches money with fear may gain some riches, but never finds peace. Their mind is restless, their heart anxious. Another person, who may hold less in material terms but lives with gratitude, often radiates peace, joy, and resilience. Which one is truly wealthy? Edgar Cayce often emphasized that our souls came into this world not to amass possessions, but to grow in consciousness. Gratitude expands that consciousness, teaching us to see the divine in every provision, every challenge, every exchange. When gratitude is constant, setbacks no longer feel like final defeats. A lost job becomes a doorway to a new chapter. A financial struggle becomes a teacher of resilience. Even times of scarcity become reminders of what still remains. Gratitude creates endurance, and endurance is a form of wealth deeper than gold. Over the years, you may find that money itself responds to this posture. Opportunities flow more easily, relationships with trust deepen, and wise decisions emerge more naturally. But even beyond those outcomes, gratitude ensures that whether money increases or decreases, your spirit remains abundant. You carry wealth within, and no fluctuation can strip it away. Consider the legacy this leaves. Children raised in a home of gratitude learn not to fear money, but to respect and trust it. Communities rooted in gratitude share resources more generously, creating cycles of abundance that benefit all. A life lived with gratitude leaves behind not just assets, but an atmosphere, a vibration of peace, trust, and prosperity that lingers long after you are gone. Practical examples remind us of this truth. An elderly man once said, "I never became a millionaire, but I lived like one." When asked what he meant, he smiled, "I gave thanks every day for what I had. I never lacked. My friends, my family, my health, my roof. These were riches beyond counting." His story reminds us that gratitude itself is the gold, and those who mine it live rich lives, regardless of their bank balance. So as you reach this moment in our journey together, pause and reflect. How would your life change if gratitude became your default posture toward money? How would each paycheck feel, each bill, each purchase, each act of saving or giving? How might your stress dissolve, your vision expand, your heart rest? This is not theory. It is practice. Gratitude transforms finances not by magic, but by shifting the very ground on which you walk. And when the ground is firm, every step becomes steadier. This is the invitation: to live with gratitude not as an occasional practice, but as a lifelong wealth. To let gratitude be the lens through which you see money, the rhythm through which you handle it, the current through which it flows. In doing so, you will discover that true prosperity was never far away. It was within you all along. And now let us draw our journey to a close, gathering the threads of gratitude and finance into one final reflection, a conclusion that reminds us why thankfulness is not only a virtue, but also the secret to abundance. From the very beginning of this journey, we have been exploring a paradox: that gratitude, something often seen as soft or sentimental, could transform something as practical and unforgiving as money. Yet as we walked step by step, it became clear that this paradox is in fact a profound truth. Gratitude does not ignore financial reality. It redefines it. It takes the weight of fear and replaces it with trust. It takes the blindness of scarcity and opens the eyes to abundance. Think of the ground we have traveled together. We began with the recognition that gratitude shifts perception, then saw how it dissolves the scarcity mindset, how it attracts opportunities and strengthens relationships, how it transforms daily practices like paying bills or saving, how it brings clarity to decision-making, how it reframes even debt as a stepping stone, and how it reveals the spiritual side of prosperity. Each step has led us here, to the recognition that gratitude itself is wealth. The truth is simple, yet revolutionary. When you live with gratitude, money ceases to be an enemy. It ceases to be a master. It becomes a servant of life, a current you can trust. With gratitude, you no longer measure your worth by what you possess. You measure it by the peace you carry, the love you share, the trust you inspire. And paradoxically, from that posture, material prosperity often flows more freely because you are no longer blocking it with fear, bitterness, or shame. Edgar Cayce once said that every thought is a seed, and every seed bears fruit. Gratitude is the seed of abundance. Plant it daily, and the harvest will surprise you, not only in dollars and cents, but in friendships, in peace of mind, in resilience, in joy. So what now? Begin where you are. Tonight, before you sleep, write down 3 financial blessings, however small, for which you are grateful. Tomorrow, when you pay for something, whisper thanks for the flow of provision. This week, express gratitude to someone connected to your financial life. These small acts will ripple outward, changing your energy, changing your decisions, changing your opportunities. And when doubt rises, when fear returns, when scarcity whispers, return to gratitude. It is the anchor in the storm, the light in the cave, the bridge to freedom. Let it steady you, remind you, and carry you. In the end, the question is not simply, how much money do you have? But how much gratitude do you live with? For gratitude is the wealth that never runs dry. Gratitude is the treasure you can carry anywhere. Gratitude is the flow that turns money from burden into blessing. So let us close with this affirmation. When I am grateful, I am wealthy. When I give thanks, I am free. When I honor the flow of life, abundance honors me. May you live this truth, and may gratitude transform not only your finances, but your entire life into a river of peace and prosperity.